Hey guys, I'm Ryan from the Econ Tutoring Center. Today I'm going to talk about a minimum wage and the effect of a minimum wage on the labor market. Also remember that notation and language might change by professor, so you should always check to make sure the language we're using is the same as your professor. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and run through an example of a minimum wage problem in a labor market where we have this demand for labor and the supply for labor. Where of course P is the wage because the price that a firm pays for labor is the wage, and Q is the amount of labor people supply, whether it be in hours or whatever units you want to use. First thing, remember that QS in this case is the consumers or the individuals who are supplying their labor, and QD comes from the firms who demand labor, demand a certain amount of labor at each price. So first off, I'll start by graphing this here, and I'm going to put, this is Q on the bottom, but I'm just going to call it labor so that it's obvious, and then this will be wage up here. Right, and we can check here what the y-axis here, the wage axis, is going to be for each of these. So that happens when we set Q equal to 0, and in that case we are going to get labor or quantity demanded comes through this axis at like 17 over 2, which I'll put up here. So that's just where we know where to start our demand curve from. So somewhere up here, let's say 17 over 2. And the supply curve starts at 1. And then we know this goes up with slope of 10, and this comes down with a little bit steeper slope of 20. Okay, so this is our demand for labor, and this is our supply of labor. Okay, so now we can go ahead and solve for what this initial equilibrium is before we apply any minimum wage. So in this labor market, of course, we're just going to set the supply equal demand like usual. And that is going to get us that 180 is equal to 30p, and so P, or our equilibrium wage anyway, is equal to $6. So that is this wage right here. So in this labor market, if before any taxes or anything, the wage would normally be 6, and then we can plug P equals 6 into either of these equations to find the equilibrium number of hours supplied, or hours or whatever units labor is measured in, is 50. You plug that in right here, you're going to get 10 times 6 is 60, minus 10 is 50. Okay, so now we're going to see what happens when we apply a minimum wage of 1. So we're going to say, excuse me, of 7. So our minimum wage now is equal to $7. So first of all, note that this minimum wage is what we say is effective because it's above the equilibrium wage. So that's going to change up this market. If the minimum wage were 5, then we would have no problem because we're already satisfying that minimum wage at our equilibrium wage of 6. So if we apply this minimum wage right here at 7, which says that you have to pay people at least $7 for each unit of labor, then we're going to end up with this right here for our quantity demanded of labor, because now firms have to pay more for each. They have to pay a higher wage for each unit of labor. And here we're going to have our quantity supplied of labor, because of course people are going to be more willing to supply their labor because they're getting a higher wage for that now. So it should make sense that now quantity supplied is higher than quantity demanded is. So we can actually first solve for what these two numbers are, that quantity, the new quantity supplied of labor and the new quantity demanded of labor. And the way to do that pretty easily, we just plug 7 into quantity supply and quantity demand of labor. So if we plug 7 into quantity demand of labor, we are going to get that we're going to have 170 minus 20 times 7, which is going to get us 170 minus 140, which is going to equal 30. So this number down here is 30. And then if we plug it into the supply equation, we're going to get that 10 times 7 minus 10 is equal to 60. So that gets us this point right here. Okay, so now we know we obviously have this this problem here where quantity supplied is higher than quantity demanded. Normally we call that a surplus. So in a surplus in the labor market we would call that unemployment, right? So this right here, that distance, because now this many people want to supply this labor, but only 30 people are going to get hired at this new wage. So normally that's a surplus. Here we call that unemployment. I'll write that out like that. That's unemployment. And the unemployment is exactly 60 minus 30, so unemployment is equal to 60 minus 30, which is equal to 30. So now we have 30 people unemployed in this market. Or I guess 30 hours underutilized or in this market. Okay, so now what we can do is we can actually solve for exactly how much people are gaining and losing in this market. So of course we're going to have some people who gain. So the people who are still hired in these first 30 hours or first 30 units of labor are going to gain something, because now instead of just getting $6 per hour, they're getting $7 per hour. And that is exactly these people, these 30 people right here, times this $1 extra that they get. So that is the gain right here, is this area. So I'll actually make that red so it's obvious. So the gain to suppliers of labor, so to individuals, is equal to how many hours they get to, how many hours they get hired for now, times what the increase in wage is. So they still have the 30 hours that they used to supply their labor for, but now they get $1 more for each hour. So the gain is going to be 30. We can also calculate the loss, because we have these 20 hours right here. We used to have 50 hours that were the equilibrium number of hours or units of labor in this market, but now only 30 are being demanded. So all 20 hours here, or 20 people, I guess you can say, who would have supplied their labor, lose the full $6, right? So they're going to lose this whole blue area, because now they didn't get to work at all. So if you want to think of these like labor units as people, 30 people get a raise, 20 people get completely fired. So 30 people get $1 extra for each hour, 20 people lose $6. So our loss, right, is just going to be that difference there. It's that 20 people times how much they lose, which is 6, which is going to get us 120 loss. And I guess these are in dollars if we're assuming the wages in dollars. So then we can see, well, what's the net effect of this minimum wage here? Because some people lose, some people gain, and so I would say that we can say that the net effect of this minimum wage on this market is going to be 120, or rather 30, the gain, minus the loss, which is 120, which is going to get us a net effect of negative $90. Right, so this minimum wage hurt this labor market. There was a negative effect on suppliers of labor, or individuals. All right, hopefully that gave you a better idea of how a minimum wage might affect the labor market and how to solve a problem given the supply of labor and the demand for labor.